document. It was linked in the title in the notes. So if you would print this, and we're going to kind of fill in, this will be a good flow chart as you work through some of these questions. So in the initial intro video from Paul Anderson, we already saw that the relationship between pH and H plus concentration, remember that's what the brackets mean, is that pH equals negative log of H plus concentration. So that's easy enough to type into your calculator. You just hit the negative button on your calculator, and then you have a log button. And then if you're told what the H plus concentration is, you type that in, hit enter, and that will tell you your pH. The inverse of that. So what if you know your pH and you want to find your concentration? So going the other direction. To do that, H plus concentration is equal to 10, because log is a base 10, raised to the negative pH power. Be very careful when you're filling this in that you understand that's not 10 minus pH. That's 10 raised to the negative pH power. And on your calculator, that's actually really, really easy to do, because if you look at your log button, if you find the log button, whether it's on your phone or on a calculator, or if you download a calculator app, right above it, there's a 10 to the X power. So to get to that, you would do second log, and it would give you 10 raised to, and then you tell it the power. And so that's where you type in your negative pH. So that's the relationship between pH and H plus. On the other side of this diamond, we have something very similar, but it's measuring the power of hydroxide versus the concentration of the hydroxide ion. The math that you use to get between these two things is the same as the math we use to get between these two things. So if I'm going from hydroxide ion concentration and I'm trying to find pOH, pOH is equal to negative log of the hydroxide concentration. And then inversely, if I'm looking for the hydroxide ion concentration, that is equal to 10 raised to the negative pOH power. We also looked at the pH scale, and we saw that it ranges from 0 to 14. Well, when we take pH and we add it to pOH, that means the sum of those two things must equal, sorry, my pen's there being funny, 14. So if I know one of them and I want to find the other, for example, if I want to find pH, but I know pOH, I just need to subtract the pOH from 14. So that's pretty simple. And then of course, going the other direction, if I know pH, but I want pOH, then I subtract pH from 14. And then lastly, there is a way to connect these two things. In the video, Mr. Anderson talks about how the likelihood of finding a hydrogen ion or hydronium, remember that's H3O plus is the same thing, is 1 in every 10 million, or 1 times 10 to the negative 7 times. So if I combine the H plus and the OH minus, both of those being likely to be found every 1 times 10 to the negative 7 times in water, there's a relationship called KW that says the product of those two concentrations is equal to 1 times 10 to the negative 14. Because if you remember anything about your log rules, when I take 1 times 10 to the negative 7 times 1 times 10 to the negative 7, I actually add those exponents together. So let's say I'm trying to get from H plus to the OH minus. I can just rearrange this expression algebraically to find that OH minus is equal to 1 times 10 to the negative 14 divided by H plus. And then, of course, going the other direction, if I want to find H plus, then 1 times 10 to the negative 14 divided by the hydroxide concentration would tell me what my H plus is. So the trick to answering any of these questions is to figure out what it is that you know. So figure out where on the diamond you're starting, and then identify where you're trying to end up, and just use the flow chart to get there. So the most amount of steps you're ever going to have to do is 2, because you wouldn't go, if I wanted to go from here to here, I wouldn't go all the way around. I would just take the most direct path. If I wanted to go from this side of the diamond to this side of the diamond, it doesn't matter if you take the top path or the bottom, you would end up with the exact same answer. So the next series of videos, it seems like a lot, but they're all very short. Each video is working out one example of any potential scenario, and then you get an opportunity to practice one of those. That way you can go back, and if you're working on the UT Quest and you get stuck and you figure out that I know what my pOH is and I'm trying to find my OH, then you can just reference back to that video, and they're all going to be super short.